Welcome to another edition of the Inspired Stories podcast, where leaders share their experiences so we can learn from their successes and be inspired by how they've overcome adversity. My name is Anthony Codispoti, and today's guest is Margaret Wang, Director of Amenity and Lifestyle Operations at LIVunLtd. They are a hospitality and amenities management firm who designs and manages fitness, wellness, concierge, and lifestyle experiences for residential. With more than 500 team members nationwide, LIVunLtd brings five-star hospitality to everyday living through activated amenity spaces, curated programs, expert staffing, and white glove service. Under Margaret's leadership, communities under her care at LIVunLtd have launched vibrant community programs and secured partnerships with high visibility brands in the industry. The firm was recently highlighted as a 2025 top workplace, and its portfolio now spans New York, New Jersey, Maryland, North Carolina, Florida, and beyond. Margaret herself is a Women in Construction ambassador and serves on the advisory council for the National Association of Asian American Professionals. Now, before we get into all that good stuff, today's episode is brought to you by my company, Add Back Benefits Agency. Listen, if you run a business, you're likely stuck in the cycle of rising insurance premiums. You're paying more, but your team is getting less, and many people can't afford coverage at all. We do things differently. We offer a solution that provides your hospitality employees with unlimited access to doctors, therapists, and prescriptions that's always free for them to use. But here's where you really need to pay attention. Unlike every other employee benefit out there, our program leverages different insurance frameworks to put more money into the company's bank account. As an example, we recently helped a client increase net profits by $900 per employee per year. Results vary, but the consultation is free. See if you qualify today at addbackbenefits.com. All right, back to our guest today, the Lifestyle Director of LIVunLtd, Margaret Wang. Thanks for making the time to share your story today.
Good morning, Anthony. Thank you for having me.
So, Margaret, as I look at your career, I see that you have held a number of roles: communications, writing, marketing, leadership roles across a variety of industries. It seems to me like you are a great example of some people are rarely just one thing. Can you kind of connect the dots for us? What led you from education into PR and then into real estate?
Sure. I think overall what drives me is my curiosity. So I have many interests, and if I find a space that I'm curious, a topic, person, a path, whatever, if I'm curious about it, I'm going to pursue it. And I think that has been the driving force that landed me in various roles in various industries. And also the relationships I've built. I feel that relationships have contributed significantly to my successes when I look back. So I always love roles that are client facing, high visibility. I love knowing that I'm making an impact. I'm making a real difference in the community, a visible impact. So I think those industries had made sense for me, wanting to begin in education and then moving into PR and real estate. Those are industries where there are high visibility roles. And in exploring each of those spaces, I always want to focus on being fully present and bringing my whole self to whatever the endeavor is that I'm working through. And in that, I will oftentimes connect with different professionals, perhaps in different industries, who ignite new curiosities within me. And so those relationships will lead me to pursue areas that I had not previously thought of. And so in that way, that's kind of how I carved my path from education to PR to real estate, telecoms, and beyond.
So I want to hear a little bit more about the relationships. Am I understanding that relationships with your coworkers who maybe went on to other endeavors helped to open up doors and ideas for you down the road? Or was it more the folks that you were interacting with from a client perspective?
It's really all of the above. So during my short stint within the educational system back in Philadelphia, I had met some people who thought that the presence, the energy that I brought into the room could really be a great strength if I wanted to explore PR, marketing, events, and all that. And I did end up having an internship in that space, found that I really loved it. And so that led me to explore that path. As another example, when I did end up in the marketing and events capacity for a real estate firm, relationships that I've made through partnerships or collaborations on various initiatives resulted in me wanting to explore a sales role. And so for the first time, I was recruited to join a sales team. And from there, really loved being able to dive into consultative sales. So in each role I've held, it's allowed me to blossom within that specific work environment as well as outside of it. And being a highly collaborative person myself, placing a heavy emphasis on partnerships and conversations with whoever crosses my path has always led me towards newer, bigger, better things to explore.
So I'm curious, when you took that first sales role, how did it fit initially? Like, how did you take to it? Was it like, oh, this is what I was meant to do all along? Or did you feel a little bit like fish out of water until you figured out learn the ropes, so to speak?
A little bit of both. There's definitely, each time you step into a new role, a new chapter, a new environment, you have to adapt to it. There are going to be areas where your strengths and skills and personality are clearly aligned. And then there are other areas where you have to make sure you are adaptable and you remain a coachable individual in order to succeed. Whatever your quota, your goals may be within that organization. So I certainly felt that my speaking skills, overall communication skills, ability to identify and nurture relationships was tremendously helpful. But there's a lot of pressure in sales. You have to really understand how to manage your time, your own personality. The personality is many different people around you, whether they are your prospects or your leadership team or your peers. Everyone's working towards a common goal, but there are many different avenues you need to tackle on a daily basis. So I think that learning how to adjust to a high stress, fast paced environment was something I needed to consistently coach myself through and find others who may be able to support me and coach me through that. So you never feel like you're going alone. So finding community each time you step into a new role is also very important.
Can you think of a specific example as you were learning the ropes in the sales role there, where you kind of maybe fell on your face a little bit and you had to learn from it, kind of pick yourself up, dust yourself off?
Yes, I think when you're in a sales role, any sales professional can attest to the fact that you grow to have very tough skin. You can't really be a sensitive soul in the sales space because you are dealing with rejection all the time. There are going to be people around you with very abrasive personalities. You have to be able to pivot quickly. And so I had to really learn how to let things slide, how to manage my own emotions daily. And it's very important to understand how not to hold on to the different energies, especially if they're negative energies that are coming at you on a daily basis, hour by hour, minute by minute. You have to be able to detach, log off emotionally, know when to do that, and be able to bounce back. So when you consistently navigate that ebb and flow, you build you're able to consistently build more confidence and inner strength and more emotional balance.
Can you think of a specific example? Leave names out of it, but kind of walk us through what happened. This is how we learn from each other, right?
Right. I'm trying to think of an example that would be pretty relevant. Well, there was a deal that I was working where I was energized and excited about it because I love anytime I get to approach something with an educational path. So, anytime you are advising a prospect or a client on how products or services may align with their visions and needs, it's always been very helpful for me to stick to educating them, advising them rather than an aggressive sales tactic. And obviously, different environments require different approaches. And so, with this group of individuals, conversations were flowing well. I was getting positive feedback, and it seemed like it was going to be a win. Not an easy win, but a win. Things were moving along successfully on track. But there was one individual who seemed to not like my personality. It could have been other things as well. For some reason, this individual was a detractor and insisted on looking at every angle through a very negative lens. He may have had his own visions and needs and goals that may not have aligned with the broader group. Maybe he was more invested in his own desires than the team's goals. Whatever reason it was a consistently combative environment that I was walking into. So in short, ended up walking away from that deal without being able to close it. But it did not feel like a failure entirely because I had gotten such great, strong, positive feedback from the majority of the group on how I was able to establish trust and them placing their trust in me to educate them on products and services and exploring their desires, goals, and visions. That really cemented a positive relationship with many of the individuals. And through humor, through trying to find elements in common, whatever sparse areas there may have been with this individual who was a tricky individual, I was at least able to diffuse some of the combativeness and negativity each time that I had to interact with him. And so even though it was not a deal closed, I did not walk away feeling like a failure or thinking that it was a waste of time.
I mean, good for you to be able to sort of take away the positives from that. Because anybody who's been in a sales role knows, yeah, it's painful especially when you think you're headed down a good path and, the deal falls apart. But you were able to sort of put another tool in your tool belt. Like, okay, now I've got more experience with how to deal with somebody who's difficult. I sort of take the high road. I use a little bit of humor. And as evidence of that being effective, sort of the rest of the people in the group, you built a lot of trust with, you had a good relationship with there. So I think that's a great example of, how that can work. So let's fast forward a little. So when you first began managing condos and co-ops, I think this was back in 2007.
Mm-hmm.
What did that role look like? What were your day-to-day responsibilities there?
It was a very adventurous time. I think when you're managing New York City real estate, especially in multi-dwelling residential environments, no 2 days are the same. Anything could be happening. You're dealing with communities that have hundreds of households. My day-to-day focus largely on collaborating with board members, vendors, building staff, and you have multiple projects going on at any given time. You are managing finances, maintenance, operations, community affairs, building staff, and also outside vendors. So you are you're very emotionally invested in some ways. There are a lot of, given the size of the communities, you're also forming personal relationships. So you have to make sure that you're not conflating the two. So no 2 days are the same. It's a lot of emotional management when you're dealing with that number of people. But so many lessons learned, knowing how to manage your own emotions, manage your time, successfully deliver information in a way that is well received by all parties. So you really have to understand the personalities in front of you, your own communication style versus their communication styles, and making sure that info reporting, project status updates are all being received in a way that it needs to.
That's helpful. Thank you for sharing that. How did you discover this lifestyle director role, and explain to us what that traditionally is?
So That space has, over the years, it's been growing as a necessity almost. So I first discovered the role early in 2024 due to a relationship I had with a senior level leader who orbited the space within real estate management and hospitality. I think over the years, boards, developers, managing agents are seeing the need for lifestyle teams because it's a way to implement a true differentiator to positively impact the bottom line of a property. And essentially, lifestyle teams, people oftentimes won't even realize are kind of the powerhouses driving communities. They are positively contributing towards resident retention, elevating residents' lifestyles on a daily basis. And so you're really adding a human touch to a multi-dwelling residential environment that can otherwise feel a little bit sterile with all the different governing bodies that are on site at a condo, co-op, or rental building, commercial properties, and whatnot.
And so how did the opportunity specifically at LIVunLtd come about?
So I had kept many rewarding, healthy relationships throughout my career trajectory. And the individual who initially alerted me to such a role was someone I had worked with throughout the real estate world. And it felt to her like my strengths, skills, my personality would be well aligned for something that was high visibility, client facing, and knowing that I was someone who really enjoyed roles that would allow me to flex my strengths in a creative aspect and be able to communicate on various projects, different initiatives in different categories. I was connected to LIVunLtd, and from there, conversations were very attractive to me. And here I am.
So we talked a little bit in the intro about what LIVunLtd does, but can you break it down for us in sort of simple terms? Because this is a concept that prior to us connecting, I was not familiar with. And so I suspect that's the case for a lot of our listeners too.
Mhm. Sure. So LIVunLtd is a hospitality and amenity management firm. We are growing across North America. Currently, I believe we are retained at over 200 properties with luxury properties, mid-luxury properties, both residential and commercial. So in short, we support developers, boards, owners, managing agents in elevating the daily lives of residents and guests. I guess you could say on the experiential front, that's where you see our cultural lifestyle events programming come to life. We are activating all of the spaces, all the amenity spaces within a property, whether that is a health club, wellness studios, children's playroom, rooftop penthouse clubs. And so the lifestyle programming significantly increases the opportunity to enjoy third spaces, we call it, places for community and connection. And on the consultative side, we conceive of, design, implement health equipment. We can support developers in how to optimize spaces in general, advise them on what is most desirable, the types of wellness spaces. It may be something as simple as package rooms, which are always needed. And so it's certainly a way to implement a differentiator that will allow a property to have leverage over their competitors.
So let me see if I understand this correctly and help fill in the blanks where I'm missing things. So you go to a large apartment complex and you say, hey, I think we can do a better job over here with the fitness space. And from our experience managing over 200 properties, here are some things that we've seen are really attractive for folks. And it's like, oh, look over here. There's an empty space here that's not really being utilized. How about we set up a package room over here? Or it seems like a lot of your guests have kids. Maybe there's a kids' playroom that we put in here. Or maybe there's a restaurant, or that's probably a bit too involved, but maybe like you have like I don't know, a popcorn and beer hour once a week. Am I kind of getting there? Help me out.
Yes, you're right on track. I think these days, You see many properties focus on having the space, having amenity spaces, higher square footage that almost becomes par for the course these days. But having lifestyle teams on site to oversee these spaces, officially activate them, and really showcase for the community how residents can interact on a daily basis with these beautiful spaces, that's a true differentiator. Allowing residents to feel like these expansive common areas are an extension of themselves and their own households. It creates a more intimate feel. Having that type of interaction allows them to feel like they're really coming home. They're coming home to a community. They can view their condo or co-op or rental building environment as a sanctuary. It's not just you're not confined to the four walls of your unit. There's so much for you to enjoy and incorporate into your daily life and daily joy.
You've used the phrase a couple of times, activate the spaces. Can you say more about what that means?
Sure. Developing visions on how residents can enjoy their environments. So if you have a beautiful wellness studio, you have the space, it's clean, it's peaceful, but you're not quite sure how residents will enjoy utilizing it most, we may come in and say, well, maybe having a sound bath session here or an acupuncture session here, or massage therapy. And you experiment. Lifestyle teams are kind of the front line when it comes to resident relationships. So we're going to develop relationships, engage in dialogue, fully understand the demographics. And part of the significance of having lifestyle teams on site is being able to fully understand the community that you're building. Maybe you have, as a developer or a board, you have a vision of the type of community you are building towards, but perhaps that is not the direction that things are moving in as people are actually moving in. So having lifestyle teams be a voice for the residents, resident advocate, creating that relationship there, you'll have a better understanding of your demographics, what they need and want, and what types of activities they are energized to engage in.
What is the ideal time for you to get involved with the client? Is it while the property is being designed and thought of and developed, or does it traditionally happen afterwards?
I would say it would be ideal if the lifestyle team were able to join the conversation during the very beginning phases. So all teams are on the same page. You are building relationships with each other, the on-site teams, your managing agent, the ownership team, sales and marketing, the building staff. So you're clearly paving a road together. You have a collaborative vision. Everyone understands the values and the visions moving forward. That certainly creates a solid cohesion, to have important conversations and make important decisions as you go. But certainly at any given point, you may have a board or managing agent who has never explored on-site lifestyle teams, and they see how their neighbors are able to retain their resident community base, or other individuals in the neighborhood who are so excited to come home, where they're constantly talking about the events activations at their location, and you may want to start to explore. So at any given point, you can explore, bring in a lifestyle team, experiment with different types of activations, large and small. And I don't doubt that communities will see what a positive ripple effect it has on their community.
Tell us about some of these positive ripple effects. Is it the ability to charge higher rents, better margins? Is it just sort of reduce that tenant turnover? Are there other benefits that they see?
Both of those are certainly goals, depending on what type of building you are, what category, what type of community you're trying to foster. But I think overall, lifestyle teams implement that human touch that is often lacking. There are many communities that are absolutely gorgeous, filled, and it's a vibrant community, but not everyone is connected to each other, or they lack the opportunities to connect. You could be in a beautiful, expansive 200 unit community, and maybe you're coming home and you you don't see your neighbors, you don't have any opportunities to engage in conversation, and you feel that while the amenity spaces are available to you, maybe they feel a little bit sterile. So having the human touch there, softening up the environment a bit, providing opportunities and encouraging the resident base to come out, enjoy their environments, and also connect with each other really emphasizes the desire for the third space and for having an extension of space that they can enjoy while maintaining the privacy at home.
Mm. Can you give us a couple more examples of some things that you guys do? As I hear you talking about this, Margaret, it's been a long time since I've lived in an apartment complex, and it kind of reminds me of what the dorms when I was back in college eons ago used to try to have the RAs do. They put together these programs, and they were all well-intentioned, but most people weren't really interested in listening to somebody come and talk about stress or whatever it was that they were doing. It seems to me like what you guys are doing is a similar concept, but like on steroids, like actually figuring out like what it is that people want and brings them in and draws them together. But I think it would help me and probably our listeners if we could just kind of go through a couple of other specific examples of the kinds of things that you guys do.
Sure. So events can include neighborly mixers, industry panels, health and wellness activities and events, events that showcase dining and nightlife around the community. Um,
Can you be more specific? Like what is it, like a wellness event, or what does it mean to, explore the nightlife around the complex?
Sure. So one example that comes to mind was a very well-attended wellness expo that my team and I produced. And it was a lot of fun because we were able to get various vendors on site and have residents be connected to different brands, different vendors and communities off-site, brought them on site so residents could engage in person. This included having a sound bath in our wellness studio, breath work and meditation in another space, having ear seating and acupuncture available, bringing in different brands for desserts, light bites, hors d'oeuvres. We also had a session for young professionals for headshots. So there was a variety of activities and avenues to explore. And this really brought together the community at one of our marquee clients known as Monogram New York. So it's a 200-unit residential luxury condo in Midtown Manhattan. And given the location, the community is very diverse in age range, in cultural backgrounds and professional backgrounds. So having such a diverse community to work with is so much fun. Being able to curate what's going to be on an event's agenda is equally as energizing because you have so many different personalities you can cater to. And communities are great at giving feedback. They may come to you proactively and say, we may want to explore more the arts and culture avenue. And so we've had pop-up art galleries, discussions on film history. And so you get to know the community and you have the opportunity to engage in conversation on a daily basis. And you collect the data. You can also identify what's trending around town. And you explore. You can take an experimental approach. And so that was one example where we had really strong feedback and resident and guest attendance. And it was a great time.
And so are these events traditionally free for the residents to participate in? Like you get some sort of a budget from the complex itself?
Yes, traditionally that is how it would go. Ownership teams like to offer these as a differentiator for the community base. This is how we elevate their daily lives. This is how communities have an edge of their competitors. They're able to allow the residents to say, well, our community connects us to so many different lifestyle brands and supports us in explorations and culture and the arts. And so it's very desirable from the resident lens.
How many units, how many properties are under sort of your watch in your portfolio?
So I have mostly one large client who I am working with on site here, which takes up the majority of my focus. This is Monogram, New York, that I mentioned. We are a 200-unit luxury condo, and so it's been great fun. And we do have a team that is all over the region. So there are different personalities. My colleagues come from many different backgrounds, mostly hospitality professionals. And so we always contribute to each other's initiatives and projects, and make sure we have a solid multi-pronged strategy, if you want to call it, to ensure success for the various communities in our portfolio.
And in the time that you've been there, Margaret, how has your role specifically evolved?
I would say it has evolved in many ways. I wear many hats, as I'm sure many of my colleagues in lifestyle space do. It's been great fun having the opportunity to work so closely with various teams like sales, marketing, PR, property management. So I've learned a lot, been able to contribute to many different initiatives that are outside of my lifestyle focus. And it's also been a lot of fun being able to secure various partnerships with wellness brands, dining and nightlife, and really expose both our lifestyle and concierge teams as well as our resident bases to many different partnerships and relationships. Um, and I hope that this is how the path continues. Being able to consistently grow and expand my perspective is most exciting to me.
How do you guys separate yourselves from the competition? What makes you different?
I don't think we have many competitors in this space that you can compare to us like for like. I think that we have a very holistic approach, and we're sort of a one-stop shop for developers, owners, and boards. We have, like I mentioned a little bit earlier, the experiential side, the consultative side, and our team members are, like I just mentioned, a majority of them do come from hospitality. So when you take that type of experience, skills, and strengths, when you are dealing with or navigating the hospitality landscape as a frontline member, and you take that and you apply it to residential and commercial properties, those skills and experience become invaluable. So having a voice for the residents, having that human touch, being able to soften an environment within residential commercial spaces. I think people often see concierge teams, guest advocate teams in the travel industry, and they don't often realize how easily and how successfully it can be applied to residential environments.
And do you typically work exclusively on site then?
Typically, yes.
Yeah.
Most of my
Okay.
days are spent on site. That's where I'm most effective. Continuing to nurture relationships between the multiple teams I work alongside, as well as the resident base, of course.
So are you like very popular with the resident base because you're like always there setting up all these cool free things for them to do?
I guess you could say that. Yes, people know who I am. They know where to find me, and they don't shy away from
You're like Mrs. Claus. I love
that.
it. What's a specific initiative that you're particularly proud of, something that you've rolled out there?
I guess I'm lucky to say there are many projects I've been involved with that I'm proud of, but I'm probably seeing the great positive turnouts at the large scale events. One that remains top of mind is the Wellness Expo I spoke of earlier. Being able to conceive of a vision and then executing that and drawing the type of individuals that you want through the door and seeing them visibly enjoy themselves and providing positive feedback. That in itself is so rewarding, knowing, and this is what I kind of mentioned at the very beginning of our conversation, when you know you're making a positive impact and the positive results are visible, that's such a driving force. And you continue to build from there. We've had this great success here. How do we continue to expand on it going forward? How do we continue to collect even more data and refine this or pivot away from X, Y, and Z? So being able to build things and execute successfully on it, I think I would say very proud of that.
Yeah. How about one that maybe didn't go so well, an event or an initiative where you had high hopes for it and kind of fell flat for one reason or another?
Very luckily for me, I don't think I've seen, and it might happen, but thus far, nothing has fallen flat. I wouldn't say. I wouldn't
You
say
haven't
we've
struck out a
seen.
single time.
I wouldn't say struck out. No, I mean it's kind of hard to strike out when you are perpetuating fun. This isn't like other roles I've had where there's a hard deadline, a quota to meet. You have to close a deal. You have to get that signature on paper. This is very different. And so, with my main focus being to create community and connections, it's hard to fail at that completely. But there are certainly scenarios that were learning experiences. There was a time where it was a good problem to have. We had exceeded guest count and realized that we need to start staffing more proactively so that we can ensure the integrity of the space is maintained. When people are having fun, you might get broken bottles here and there out on the terraces. Things like that can be a serious safety hazard. So you have to make sure you're proactively thinking ahead. And again, having too large an event that's too well attended is always a good problem to have. But there are always scenarios that pop up that allow us to say, okay, let's do better here. Let's be more proactive in this corner and that corner.
Mm. And so sometimes it's just you on site there. And other times when you're running a larger event, you kind of bring in some other team members to help you coordinate that.
Yes, it can happen that way. The on-site teams are definitely smaller, more focused on that specific community when you're on site, but it's a very collaborative environment throughout our organization. We are in constant communication with each other, taking insights from each other, learning from each other's events, strategies. And so there's always a colleague, a peer that you can ping and say, I might need your insight. I might need your physical presence, in some way to support. And for each location, there are various teams on site. I think it's exceptionally important for lifestyle teams to make sure they're working hand in hand with their on site maintenance staff, their resident managers and superintendents. Having interpersonal relationships, especially when you're working on site together, is crucial because you're essentially governing a small town, so you have to make sure that you're aligned in step, you have a united front at all times to tackle all types of challenges that come at you.
Why don't some of these apartment buildings do this in-house themselves?
I think that on-site teams typically have a very similar track. They may traditionally come from only the property management angle or only the maintenance expertise angle. So it can be hard for team members who are so immersed in their years of experience on one track to pivot and have the soft skills that are often needed and required to be a successful lifestyle team. You have to make sure that you are very comfortable maintaining several relationships across different avenues. You have to make sure you're okay um, being the main point of contact for various initiatives. And so it's kind of a balance of which teams have strengths and hard skills versus soft skills. And if you are an on-site team, whether you're ownership, the managing agent, or the maintenance team, you are so inundated in your daily tasks. You may not have the bandwidth at all to be curating events or consulting on design of a space. So it can be a lot for all teams. So it's good to have team members who are devoted to specific causes to be a successful overall environment.
It also occurs to me that one of the advantages that LIVunLtd brings is the experience of all the other lifestyle managers who have experience testing out different initiatives at their properties. And so you guys can share notes. It's like, oh, hey, I'm thinking about doing this. Oh, we did something like that and we threw this in on top of it and it really made it successful.
You're absolutely right. The reach of our team is wide. The variety of personalities certainly adds to the positive experiences. And we each bring our own network of relationships. And when we're able to connect each other in times of need, that's, all the more ways to bolster success.
Where do you see LIVunLtd going, Margaret? What's the future horizon?
I think there's unlimited potential for our organization in this space and the path that we're on. We're seeing more and more how crucial lifestyle teams are in terms of positively impacting a property's bottom line, elevating brand image, resident retention, and satisfaction. Oftentimes, you see individuals these days who are very willing to forego a larger size unit in favor of a development or a community that's going to focus on having that human touch, a community that is lifestyle driven, so they can provide this third space, as we call it, for people to connect and feel truly that they're in a safe home environment. So I think the organization and the space will continue to expand as it becomes more and more attractive to builders.
Mm. Are there any initiatives that you've kind of had bouncing around in the back of your brain that you haven't had the chance to execute on yet that you would love to?
Oh, of course, tons. I mean, there are ideas that come about all the time. I
Give us a big
personally
one.
I would love to dive more into the wellness space, just to bring a variety of holistic approaches because we are in such a big city. It's a high octane environment here. So for me personally, and a lot of this comes from my own experience and my own likes and dislikes. But for me, I love any opportunity I get during my busy, fast paced days to disconnect. To recalibrate, to ground and balance myself. I think that we have a lot of very successful professionals, athletes, creative individuals, and I think they could all benefit from exploring a variety of different wellness and holistic approaches. So I would love to continue to bring more sound bath sessions, Reiki sessions if possible, more acupuncture sessions, different breath work facilitators, and allow people an outlet to physically decompress when they walk in the door at the end of their day.
Okay, I have to ask because I've never heard of it before. What is a sound bath?
So sound healing is when a facilitator they could use a variety of instruments. Typically, they will be crystal singing bowls, or perhaps they are singing bowls made of different metals. They can use things like tuning forks, rain sticks. And this is largely derived from ancient uh, Eastern culture, Asian communities, African communities. There's a whole history to dive into, but it positively impacts your brain waves and kind of resets your frequency. So if this is something that you're interested in, and I think anyone who's interested in exploring different meditative approaches, calming techniques, grounding techniques would find a sound healing session to be very beneficial. And it's so fun to learn about the different instruments, the different practitioners, how they came about having this as their main focus. And you truly do feel it. It's such a healing vibration throughout the space.
You know, from all the work that you've done with all kinds of different people, you're talking about, coordinating between different teams and whatnot. I'm curious, something maybe about human psychology that you feel like you've learned from the work that you do.
Yes, I love this question. I think with all the roles I've held, I've definitely gained pretty interesting insight into human psychology, given the abundance of individuals I speak to, navigate on a daily basis. And I think I would say that managing emotions is almost more effective than actually solving the problem that someone has brought to you. So, as a very minor example, perhaps you're dealing with a resident or a guest who's had a long and stressful week, and the straw that breaks the camel's back is their masseuse is an hour delayed. Now they can't have that meditative hour, or their floral arrangements have been lost. And it's just the last thing they need, they lose it. So they come to you, they're very emotional. And so perhaps allowing them the safe, non-judgmental space to simply express themselves and let their emotions run its course, you can easily diffuse a situation just by, it sounds cliche, but just by being a softer presence, listening to them, letting them release. And then you can tackle the actual problem. But just by giving them that time and that space to let out their frustrations immediately diffuses the situation rather than the both of you kind of unraveling in the tension of things.
Let them know that they've been heard.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. They have pent up anger and frustrations from various scenarios throughout the week. So maybe this is the one time they can actually let it out. So why not?
Margaret, what's a particularly challenging thing that you've had to overcome in your life, whether personal or professional?
I think that, I've definitely had many challenges. I think we all have. Something that comes to mind in the moment is the fact that for many years, I was kind of a high functioning anxious person. I've also met many people who similarly struggled with anxiety, but it seemed like their anxiety crippled them. It was debilitating for them. Luckily for me, or unluckily, I was kind of the opposite. In order for me to, well, I thought I was managing my anxiety. In order for me to manage it, I had to be productive, but it wasn't solving or helping anything long term. So I think when I entered my years in consultative sales, although it was a great adventure for me, those years did cause my anxiety levels to really feel out of control to the point where symptoms were manifesting physically, and I knew that something had to be done. I had to find a way to solve this for myself. Because it wasn't like I was going to leave my professional environment. That would have been the only other solution at the time. So that from there began my journey into self-care, but it was really so much more than that. Diving into really what was the root cause of my own anxiety. What were my triggers? Where were my wounds? How do I learn how to manage this thing that seems like an overwhelming monster? So I explored many things. And again, this goes back to what I was talking about earlier, having found an interest in holistic therapies like Reiki, acupuncture, meditation, breath work. I feel like that was the best thing I could have ever done for myself. If for the first time I was exploring my inner realm, which is not something I had ever explored. Everything was like an external output for me, being able to dive into work, being able to dive into social endeavors, different types of external relationships while not taking care of anything that was happening internally. And so now that I know that, I constantly encourage people to do that. People around me who are experiencing challenging times, I always ask them, have you investigated your emotions? Do you know what's going on internally? Why are things triggering you? And that's really the best way for you to understand yourself, manage your emotions, and then you immediately, well, maybe not immediately, it's an ongoing process, this healing process, but you do for sure see how it's a positive ripple effect on your work, your relationships across all avenues, and yourself. You begin to build a new higher level of self-esteem, more solid confidence in your decisions, in who you are, in your voice. So I would say that I won't say that I have solved for my anxiety. I think everyone has anxiety. It comes up at some point. It would be very strange if one didn't experience that. But it is something that is very manageable for me now versus prior years where it felt like this overwhelming enemy that I didn't know how to combat. So I feel like I
Yeah.
do it for myself.
I appreciate you sharing all that. There's different levels of anxiety, right? There's I'm a little bit anxious. I'm going to be doing this podcast interview today. And that's just your body and your mind's way of
Mhm.
saying, hey, I just want to do well. I want to make sure that I'm on my toes and I'm giving my best here. And then there's, what you're talking about, where it was just crippling. It was overwhelming. It was, physical manifestations. I'm curious to better understand, Margaret, how you took those first steps in your healing process. Was there a therapist you talked to that kind of turned you on to some of these ideas? Was it friends giving you ideas? Were you Googling for solutions?
Yeah, it was a lot of research. It just was born out of desperation, I think. I just could not deal with having panic attacks, anxiety attacks in the middle of my day, unexpected. It would just be like throwing a wrench into my day when I had everything perfectly planned out hour by hour. And then you suffer this emotional attack. And it was just crazy. It just got to the point where I said, this needs to stop. I have to figure this out. And so from there, I just did a lot of research. I did begin with talk therapy. But I really dove into exploring as many different paths as I could. So from my own research, I narrowed down a few different things that I wanted to try, which were the modalities I spoke of earlier, the Reiki, the meditation, and breath work. And each time I tried something, I would explain my challenges, and the facilitator or practitioner would enlighten me to a different path that I should explore. And so being able to find that community was helpful in itself. I had people who I could speak to vulnerably about this and not feel ashamed or embarrassed because they knew they had come from similar spaces, similar backgrounds, and they found themselves to their current paths just in the way that I had.
So it makes a lot of sense why you're so excited to bring more of these wellness concepts into your communities, because you've seen how helpful it can be for you. You want to be able to offer those kinds of solutions and assistance to others.
Absolutely. And it's something that majority people just don't think about. People, and mostly people don't have time, I suppose. You're so busy as parents, as professionals, as athletes or whatnot. You're focused on the immediate needs in front of you. And so your inner realm, your emotional, mental wellness is often left on the back burner. So if I can at least introduce the concept to people around me and be an advocate in this way, that would make me feel good.
That's really cool. So you've tried a lot of these different modalities. Are there ones that are part of either a daily or weekly routine for you that you still find to be really helpful?
Yes, certainly. All of the above, although I've kind of consolidated it. So I guess on an everyday basis, I journal frequently. And a lot of times it may just look like me taking out pen and paper and writing a simple list. So just the act of writing things down, it's kind of like a physical dump of emotions and thoughts that I've been carrying throughout the day. Sometimes I'll simply make a list of 5 emotions that I felt or 5 challenges or anything that's been annoying me that I was carrying out throughout the day. So the act of writing it down, it doesn't mean I'm taking that much time to really reflect and write an essay about what's happening. It could be a simple list, and that helps me remove that agitation from my mental space. It's now on paper, it's gone. I can start the next day with a clean slate. Meditation and breath work, same thing. When I began my I'll call it a healing journey. I was attending meditation sessions that were 30 minutes long to 2 hours long. Nowadays, it's you certainly don't have time for that as often. So my meditative practice can simply be 5 minutes, maybe 3 minutes. Maybe it's when I'm in my Uber or on the train and I just check in with myself. Am I feeling good to tackle the day? Do I have any hesitation? Are there any lingering emotions? What is it? Why is it there? Can I manage this throughout the next 8 hours? What do I need to do to get myself primed and feeling optimized? And focusing on breath work, also similar. It's not as extensive as a process as many people think. Sometimes people think these tools add to your day when they're already so crunched on time. But again, it's really just a couple minutes here and there. You can go hide in the bathroom for 60 seconds, take some long, deep breaths. You will come out feeling a little bit better than you had when you walked in. So those three are definitely in my daily practice. Even if I know I'm going into a combative meeting, do some breath work, check in with myself, So these very small habits you can easily incorporate, and then it'll just become a part of your operating system.
So the meditations that you do, lots of different styles of meditations. It sounds to me like you're just kind of getting your brain into a quieter place and then sort of evaluating where your day is and where you need to go. Is that right?
Yeah. Yeah, pretty much. I'm trying to disconnect from all the noise and make sure that I'm in a headspace, even for those few minutes where I'm fully with myself. I'm recognizing here I am. I'm sitting in this nice and comfortable chair, checking in with myself to see what types of emotions are kind of dominating in the moment. Maybe taking note of them, and not particularly doing anything about it, but just simply noting which emotions are there makes things manageable. Um, and it's kind of just a pep talk for myself to make sure that I am at least grounded before I go into a situation. So I'm not letting any of those dominating emotions take over in dialogue.
I'm so glad that you shared your approach to meditation because I think for so many people, they've tried it and the style that they've tried is, well, I'm supposed to clear my mind. And, as soon as you tell people don't think about anything, what happens? All these thoughts come flying in and they think that they're failing and they get frustrated and they're like, well, this doesn't work. This isn't for me. But you've just highlighted that there's more than one way to skin a cat here.
Yeah, definitely. And I think for anyone starting out, that's why it's so helpful to attend sessions in person, to have a facilitator or a practitioner so they can coach you through these things so you understand what it looks like as you begin to incorporate these habits into your life. And yes, meditation, I think people have these grand ideas around it, and it can be grand, but on an everyday basis, it's really just taking note of what's happening within you. That very small step is enough to be able to allow you to move more successfully towards successful meditation practices.
I really like that. Yeah, I'm glad that you shared that. How about your superpower, Margaret? What's your superpower?
Hmm. I hope, I think that I have spent enough years and time studying my own communication styles, and taking note of the various personalities I've navigated, to be able to say that perhaps communication is what I would consider my superpower. And I think um, I don't know that I can say I've completely mastered it. I think mastery is a lifetime of effort, but I have received consistent positive feedback on my speaking skills, my communication skills when it comes to relationships, and um, being a part of something bigger, a part of a project, an initiative. And I feel it's simply because I'm very mindful and intentional of what I want to say and how I say it. So I think by nature, I'm actually quite direct in my communication. And I've learned over the years that many people can find that abrasive. It's not received well. And so you have to remain adaptable. You have to learn that there are many different communication styles. People will receive your information very differently, even though you're telling three different people the same content. Each different person can receive it differently based on your delivery. And so, because the roles I've held hinge on relationships and community and connections, I've had many years to learn this and refine this. And hopefully, others around me will also agree that I've become successful in this way.
Margaret, we mentioned in the intro that LIVunLtd has been named a 2025 top workplace. Why do you think that is?
I certainly think it has to do with our core values, which are boldness, innovation, safety, partnerships. All of those align very well with my own core values. And I think anyone who's coming into the organization and feels aligned with these core values or want to champion it, um, that's what's going to raise morale, foster that collaborative environment, leave room for innovative thinking, and allow people to operate creatively for problem solving. Um, so I think the type of culture that the organization has consistently tried to refine and to champion over the years is what resulted in such a award.
Mm. We also mentioned that you are an ambassador for women in construction and on the advisory council for the National Association of Asian American Professionals. Why is it important for you with your busy life, busy schedule to get involved in sort of these extracurriculars?
I love being involved in extracurriculars because I think, and this is again something I spoke about probably earlier on in the conversation. I love being in a state of growth and expansion. I think it's very important to have a very well-rounded outlook on life, on yourself, on whatever endeavors you're pursuing. So I think you can be very successful in your current position in the professional space, but you need to continue to expand yourself outside of that, pursue all of your interests, all of your curiosities, and you also, I think it's important for everyone to give back. You've gained all your successes for a reason. Yes, it's because you put in the effort, the time, the care, but there are people around you who have supported you and kind of lifted you up. So I think finding and building community is crucial. And in order to do that, you need to contribute. So there's a saying I love, and I do not remember who coined it, but it goes something like everyone is looking for a village, but no one wants to be a villager. And I think that's very, very important. You have to contribute if you want to receive the type of support that you might need. And the National Association of Asian American Professionals, that was something that was very rewarding for me to be able to contribute in various ways to elevate other community members who may not feel as seen or who may be experiencing challenges, um, whether it's age discrimination, racial discrimination, gender discrimination. Um, and so, whatever strengths and skills and tools I have in my toolbox, I love to know that I can positively impact someone somewhere.
I like that a lot. How about continue talking about outside of work. What's your favorite hobby, your favorite pastime?
Um, I have many, but yes, I would say I do love being outdoors. So I'm hiking and biking as often as possible. I love heading to the Hudson Valley, exploring the trails throughout. I feel so lucky living where I live and not just New York City, which is my favorite city in the world, but also being in this location. It gives me access to trails in upstate New York, New Jersey, Long Island. So it's such a great corner to be in. And I think the reason I love being outdoors so much is the feeling of resetting and being able to ground yourself in a dense, heavy forest. It's such a juxtaposition to the fast paced, constant buzz of city life, which I also love.
I love it. I've just got one more question for you today, Margaret. But before I ask it, I want to do three things. First of all, anybody who wants to get in touch with Margaret Wang from LIVunLtd, you can search for her LinkedIn profile. We'll also have a link to that in the show notes. But if you're listening on the move and you can't look at the show notes, just go to LinkedIn, search for Margaret Wang, LIVunLtd, and you'll find her. Also, as a reminder, if you want to get more hospitality employees access to therapists, doctors, and prescription meds that, as paradoxical as it seems, actually increases a company's net profits, reach out to us at addbackbenefits.com. And if you're enjoying the show, a quick comment or review on your favorite podcast app goes a long way towards helping others discover our show. So thank you for taking a quick moment to do that right now. Last question for you, Margaret. A year from now, what is something specific that you hope to be celebrating?
Specific, I feel like would be hard to answer, but I guess I hope to be continuing to celebrate my growth. I feel like I'm in very heavy into a building phase right now. There's so many different interests and avenues I want to pursue professionally. I want to make sure I continue to elevate myself, my reputation, my work. So in a year from now, hopefully I will look back and can continue to say, wow, I had this idea and I executed. Look at all these great relationships and partnerships I've continued to build. So if I can do that in the next year, that would make me feel like it was a year well lived.
I like that. I'm going to push just a little bit. Is there maybe a specific skill that you would like to enhance or I don't know, a particular relationship that you would like to develop or further nurture?
Yes, yeah, definitely. I hope to meet and find more mentors, maybe mentors outside of my industry. I think that would be very interesting and very helpful. I feel I've been very lucky to have mentors within the industries that I've navigated, but perhaps it would be helpful and rewarding to speak to mentors maybe in creative industries. And I would love to really hold myself to working on my writing more. I've always been a writer. I've taken on freelance projects from time to time, but a lot of times life just gets in the way of creative endeavors, I feel. So I have various manuscripts. In the past few years, I've said I'm going to get back to it, focus on it, and I haven't. So hopefully this next year I can chip away at that and make some progress.
I like it. Margaret Wang from LIVunLtd. I want to be the first to thank you for sharing both your time and your story with us today. I really appreciate you.
Thank you for this conversation. This was so much fun. I appreciate it.
Folks, that's a wrap on another episode of the Inspired Stories podcast. Thanks for learning with us today.